We have 98 people registered, so I expect we will be a bit more. But in any case, people are entering. But let's just get started. It's 8:30. I'm very pleased to see you all here. My name is Aase Højlund Nielsen. I'm the organizer of this webinar as part of Desire. And we're looking forward to 1.5 hours of very interesting dialogue, I think, or I hope, I'm sure we will. So the title of this webinar, it's the first of a series of 2 webinars, and there will also be 2 physical events, but it's Art and Aesthetics in Urban Transformation. It's part of a larger initiative that we're doing together with NEB-Star, one of the other lighthouse demonstrator projects within New European Bauhaus. And the idea is actually to look into New European Bauhaus from a Nordic perspective. We were meeting last year in May to discuss amongst ourselves the 2 and also actually a 3rd lighthouse demonstrator project. What is it that we are talking about when we are talking about New European Bauhaus from a northern or a Nordic perspective? And that was the first initiative. Do we have some kind of northern specific element that is what is included in the New European Bauhaus? And this was the background for this event today, which we will explore further with a 2nd webinar and also 2 physical events. Next to me, I have Cornelia, which is a very good help in all the technical stuff. She's the one that is also letting all of you into this meeting. And Cornelia will look into the chat during the event, during the webinar, and collect all your comments and questions. So please mute your microphone during the presentations. Another information, we will record the event. We actually already did it. If you don't want your image to be shown, please turn off your camera. And if you have questions, the recording will be shared later on at the Desire the Desire website. And we will inform you all by mail afterwards. But if you have questions or comments, please feel free to share them in the chat. You may also raise your hand later on when we have the open session with your input and comments. But before I leave the floor to our 3 speakers, just a very brief introduction to Desire. Desire is a lighthouse demonstrator project, designing the irresistible circular society, it stands for. And we are talking about by designing products and services and experiences and systems to be irresistible, we aim for a future where sustainability in urban transformation becomes so attractive that it barely seems like a choice. And this is sort of our initial credo. That's what we put into our project proposal, and this is what we are working with also today. We are a project working with 8 different sites, 3 in Denmark and 5 in other European countries, 2 in Italy, 1 in the Netherlands, and 1 in Latvia, and 1 in Slovenia. And through 2 years, we are experimenting with European Bauhaus values and 5 principles that we have developed ourselves. Today, we will be looking into and meeting some of the ideas there. Now, moving on to the speakers, because you haven't registered for this event to listen to me, but for our 3 excellent speakers. And 2 of them are from the Lighthouse projects. It's one from our own project, Desire, and another person from NEB-Star. Madeleine Kate McGowan is from Desire, and then we have Helene Eiliott from NEB-Star in Stavanger in Norway. And then we also are so delighted to have Amalia de Götzen from another New European Bauhaus, focusing on living heritage landscape. That is the project called Palimpsest. And all three of them are working with or within organization based in the Nordic, and working, you could say, from somehow a Nordic perspective, but of course also an international European perspective. It's difficult to distill these two elements. And they have each been asked to do a 15 minutes presentation. And when we have been listening to the three presentations, we will be doing a NEB salon, we call it, or saloon. And that's a dialogue between the three of them for 15-20 minutes. We have been asking Madeleine Kate and Helene and Amalia to consider what are the questions that rise when they listen to each other. What are the curiosities or things that come into mind, inspirations, and to share them in a interactive dialogue between themselves for a certain amount of time, 15-20 minutes. And during this, of course, you are welcome to put your questions and comments in the chat, and we'll collect on this afterwards. After this NEB Saloon, we will have a more opening session where we invite you all to question and comment with your ideas and your inspirations. So this will be the program. I will close at about 10 o'clock, pointing to the next event. The very first speaker is Madeleine Kate McGowan. She's an artist and award-winning filmmaker and speculative designer. I'm just reading aloud from the bio that we have included in the small information about the event. Madeleine Kate is also actively involved in Desire with one of our sites in Herlev, where you are working with a specific concept, the Garden Caretaker. And I know that you will be speaking about the Garden Caretaker, but also about your approach with art and aesthetic. How can we use art and aesthetic? And what is art and aesthetic in a sense when we're talking about urban transformation? So please, Madeleine, the floor is yours, and please share your screen. And we're looking forward to hearing to your presentation.
Thank you so much. So I'll just find my presentation. I'm really happy to be able to present for you today, and welcome everyone who is signing in. So you should be seeing my presentation now.
Yes.
Good. So, hi, my name is Madeleine Kate McGowan. I'm Danish-Irish, based in Copenhagen, and have been working with immersive performance art for over a decade now. And as Aase said, that is relevant considering this Nordic approach or Nordic grounding, because the immersive performance art genre is very strong in the North and has a pioneering community that grew out of Denmark predominantly from a group called Signa. And I'm educated in this group, and I think this is one of the defining aspects of all the work that I've been doing since then. So my title for today is, Can Art Be a Source for Social and Environmental Regeneration in a Time of Polycrisis? My own practice, I place here within this intersection of art, immersive art, ecology, activism, and speculative design. I am an independent artist, so I work with large-scale performance art, stage art, and I'm also the creative director in Next. And through Next, working with Desire, so responsible for a site in Denmark, in a place called Herlev, just outside Copenhagen, where we are introducing a new character into society that we have named the Garden Caretaker. And I will unfold that a bit more just later. But first, I just want to show you some images from some art pieces that I'm currently working on and that I have been manifesting. So this is to open this genre of the immersive art. What you see here is a piece that I created called Solastalgia in 2021. So as an audience, you step into a universe. This was also a sound installation with multiple sound sources. So as an audience, you stepped into a universe and you stepped into a spacious experience of sound. So from this idea of this Nordic approach, I think to have been working for so many years, to be a practitioner that is working with a wholeness and a sensuous experience that surrounds you, in contrast to this classical stage culture where you have a divided stage from an audience, where the audience sits comfortably in the dark and looks at a stage. Instead, this immersive art practice is a practice where you open a whole world. So you invite an audience to step in with their whole body, their whole intellect and their senses, and experience narratives, experience sounds, images happening everywhere around you and inside you. So that's a radical shift in art practice on how to relate to the stage, which is very relevant for the practice of the garden caretaker that I will introduce later. Another piece that I've been manifesting a couple of times and I'm working on right now is titled "What is the Value of a Bird's Song?", where I'm collaborating with an opera singer and Lucie Curet. She's a French-British opera singer, mezzo-soprano, and we are studying the songs of the birds, the local birds that are red listed. So the birds that are almost extinct in a Danish context. So here you can see her score. She's written down all the different songs by all the different birds. These are not all the red listed birds, but some of them. And then we perform it in a landscape. So again, as an audience, you will be moving in through this sound piece of the different birds, and of course, reflecting on how the world would be if they went extinct and these sounds would not be there. So that's again an embodied experience. That was a little sound snippet for you. And then the last piece is the Solastalgia piece that I started presenting earlier. But this is a new iteration, so I'm premiering this in August of this year. We're working on it right now, but again, we are moving out of the black box, out of the white cube, out of the art space, and into a landscape. Inspired by Bruno Latour, I have this sentence that is driving me, which is Gaia on stage. So now we're on the stage of the natural landscape, but we're also putting the natural landscape on the stage. So coming to the work that I do in Next, where I'm hired as an artist. So Next as a company showed the bravery, I would say, and the vision to hire me and kind of set me free and say, what happens if you involve yourself in a process with a site? So Next is working focused and deeply with the building industry, the construction industry, which is, of course, as many of us know, very heavy polluter of society. So it needs to change. I got 3 sites to work on and started developing a method for registering place. So this method I call Being of Place, and it leans into an old registration method of the genius loci, the spirit of the place, saying that a place is never a blank canvas. So through the years, the registration of place has been down prioritized in an industry that is speeding up and very much focused on profit. And an industry that also many times, unfortunately, approaches its places by a culture of overriding. So to create a project on a place, many approach it through a Google Maps perspective instead of really deepening themselves within the place and holding this approach that a place is never a blank canvas, that a place has not only valuable physical materials, but also valuable immaterial qualities. So the method I call a vertical registration. So we go in and in an intersection of different professions, I invite different people, different practitioners to register from these perspectives through a lens of the species that live there, the ecology, through a lens of looking at time and how it's affected the place, through a lens of which materials are there that can be incorporated in any way, atmospheres, which expressions, which sensuous impact is there, and which stories the place hold. So on the site that we are experimenting with through the Desire project, as Aase mentioned, before we started doing our work there was an old asphalt factory there. And we did this place registration. And through this place registration, we could identify that because it's an old industrial area, it has a weak sense of identity for the humans that are going to move there and that live there. There are many endangered species in the area, so it's, you can say, a place of a culture of separation. So we shaped this character that we call the Garden Caretaker. And it was actually inspired by this old character that we know that is linked to buildings, the caretaker that takes care of all the functional aspects of the building. So instead we thought we wanted to update this character, because now today, as we see this enormous amount of different crises that we're in, amongst them the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, what is typical for these crises is that we have created a culture of separation, and that the garden caretaker's core role is to stimulate relationship in contrast to stimulating separation. We lean into this sentence from French philosopher Bruno Latour: if we do not know the thing, we will not fight for it. So building relationship through an embodied and situated practice. So the Desire principles, I just want to cast a light on them, and then I'll dive into the aspects of belonging and aesthetics. We are working with these principles as a lens when we are dealing with the different sites. So circularity, belonging, biodiversity, movement, and aesthetics. So within Europe, we see something that I would call a crisis of belonging. So again, this culture of separation that has created this situation where we are distanced from the landscapes, the places, and the species that we live here with. This distance needs a focused caregiving work and attention of rebuilding relationship. And this is where aesthetics come into play. So to look, I just want to go back and look at the old definitions of aesthetics and the way that I use the term. So aesthetics are basically tools to activate feelings, tools to make us feel something. You can also say that aesthetics is a perceiving through the senses. So it is deeply bodily, something that activates our body, our senses, and the perception through them. So perceiving situations through our senses. And in the garden caretaker context, we work with relational aesthetics. So what defines relational aesthetics is that you need a strong framework, and then all the expressions that emerge, they come through the relations of everyone involved. And I want to go back to this notion of the old stage culture. When you, as an audience, are sitting in a seat in a darkened area, and you're not affecting what's happening on stage, you can say that the expression that emerges within that space is not very affected by you sitting in this dark audience area. When it's relational, you have stepped out of that darkness and you are part of what is happening on stage. So you affect what's happening. You ask a question, you move in some way, you have a cause and effect situation that affects everything that emerges. So I have some images to clarify. So for the strong framework in this context of the Garden Caretaker, that is a part of the Desire project, one of the identifiers of the strong framework is that we have created this shape, this frame for the exploration of the Garden Caretaker. So this is a droplet created, designed, and drawn by architect Christopher Teilgaard. It is in itself a showcase of sustainable materials, or a lack of a lot of materials, that it's a very simple construction that you can put up in 1 or 2 days. As an aesthetic piece, it is not a place where you can hang out for hours on your computer, because it either gets very warm or very cold. It is more a framework indicating to the neighborhood, we are working here. The artist is at work. So it's a very important aspect of the research. If we didn't have this, the whole process and exploration would not really have a body, and we couldn't really point towards anything, which would then not indicate to the neighborhood that things are happening. So another part of the strong framework is the character. So again, using language from theater, the character is the garden caretaker. We lean into an aesthetics of the theater, of the imagination, of the exploration, of the speculative. The garden caretaker invites the human habitants of the area into an exploration of the other species in the area, or the landscapes, or the materials, or the elements of the area, stimulating relationship, and on the long term, possibly stimulating a sense of belonging through this work.
Madeleine, please, 2 minutes. Okay.
Yes. Okay, so I'll just show you some images to give you an idea of the work. So here you see human habitants from the area exploring different workshops, of listening to organic material in the area, of writing letters to birds that are almost extinct in the area, of interacting with ancient stones, flint stones, and being told the stories of the stones. You see poetry workshops, writing about the trees in the area, exploring the landscapes, and creating a story together, actually, during this process. So, as a final note, the character is stimulating relationship through the arts, while being grounded in biological realism. The role of aesthetics is to stimulate the relationship. And then this has to go hand in hand with, of course, hardcore biological work, where we stimulate biodiversity in natural areas, maybe outside of the cities, to create habitats for the species while we create the relationship that we have to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Madeleine Kate. Very inspiring. And I hope you took a lot of notes and questions, both the 2 other speakers, but also the rest of you. And now we will move forward to Helene Eiliott from Stavanger. You are advisor of innovations in Stavanger Municipality, and you are engaging with artistic research and promoting the use of art in municipal processes. And your presentation will be about connecting people and places, exploring relational aesthetics in urban development. And we're all looking forward to hearing you presenting. So please, Helene, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Let's see if I can share the screen. Are you okay?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Aase, and the other organizers of this session. I'm very pleased to be able to discuss these matters on a bigger and Nordic scale, and sharing both the experiences that we have and listening to the others. It's I think it's quite useful, as we also in NEB-Star have been discussing the terms and the understandings of aesthetics, of relational aesthetics, and the processes. So it's a new and sort of a new concept in urban planning, and also on behalf of the municipality. So there's so much to say, and I wanted to sort of save, or not save, but at least like I'm looking forward to this session in the saloon. So I will give a backdrop with explanations and examples of our experiences from the city of Stavanger, and then also see how we can elaborate on this in our. There's something wrong with my presentation, at least. Yeah. So NEB-Star is a lighthouse project where Stavanger Municipality is one of 16 partners, and this was the list of all our partners. And we are representing the municipality. We have private developers. We also have ideal organizations, and we have the universities present. We represent architecture and design, and also art. But art is represented through the municipality and a program called the Smart Art Program. It's a long story for why we have this Smart Art Program. It's all connected to the Smart City role that we had as a municipality, and allowing us to explore new ways of being a municipality. And that's where the art comes in as a foundation and point of departure for exploring new knowledge and to bring innovation into our municipality. So I would just give this overview of the projects that we have initiated through NEB-Star. The connection of people and places is really to explore how we can use art and artistic research as a way to connect both to the places and to people. So the backdrop really is that the municipality, with the established routines of planning and architecture, is not bringing us fast enough towards the green shift, and we're not co-creating enough with today's methods. So we are looking into several aspects of how we can engage and establish communication channels, both with places and people. So from the before the NEB-Star project started, we had this Smart Art program where we engaged Paradise Rangers. I will present them after. Christine Hansen, who's a photographer, and also a couple of other artists, just to start to see how art and artistic research can have a role, can be a driving force in this transition that we very much need. And as we got into the lighthouse projects with NEB-Star, we wanted to explore further and see it in the context of the lighthouse project. So actually also doing very much what Madeleine Kate is doing now. We didn't manage to hire someone for the whole project period, but we have now Anna Eiliott, the visual artist. She is now she has a consultant assignment with Stavanger Kommune, the municipality, and as part of the NEB-Star. And then I will explain the role of the architects, Helen Hart. They are partners of ours, and we have assignments with Contemporary Art Stavanger, the online art journal, and also a creative entrepreneur who's merely doing individual responses to the project as we move along. So here we go. So with Paradise Rangers, they were hired or commissioned by us in 2019, then the pandemic came. And the idea was that we wanted to explore how art can be the driving force in a concrete urban planning project. There's a couple of areas close to the Stavanger Center called Hillevåg and Paradis, aka Paradise. And not too different from the Garden Caretaker project. These rangers, it's a performing duo where they use the performing and also the characters of the rangers, presenting and engaging inhabitants, politicians, administration, different kinds of stakeholders, but also really representing and translating to us the nature and what they call the natives, because the area that they were protecting and ranging was also full of life and full of activities already existing. So they had sort of a mission and made a declaration that the private developers and the municipality through the planning process should be aware of and respect the already existing life, which represents a completely new approach and understanding of the planning and urban development process as an overall concept, really. And also with the picture there, you see Maiken is on stage with Hansi. He is now representing a mountain, and they are out in the wilderness. And to have the concrete experience of being ranging this area and also having the say in a planning process was something that they could disseminate. On this picture is from Arendalsuka, which is a political meeting place, conference that lasts for a week and is a super important place for power and politics, let's just say. And we have Christine Hansen, the photographer. Her approach was not to take photos and make an exhibition as an ordinary artwork, but using her artistic research as a basis for developing a workshop concept for discovering place, connecting to place, and also discussing the values, seeing the value of small things, of awkward things, and also doing that sort of collection of information and data from a place, but with other perspectives and other tools, using the camera, either on the cell phone or if you had a camera, bring your own, very low key, but also in the end, having an exhibition which could present sort of the results and the work, make it concrete. So I completely relate to all what Madeleine Kate said of having these sort of frameworks is really important. And also what is nice with these workshops was that it was a meeting place for all kinds of stakeholders, all kinds of inhabitants, all ages, all backgrounds, and which is very much also an important quality of a public space. So we need to sort of find a way to value these aspects. I believe that art is a powerful communication tool for that. This is Anna, our consultant at Site 4016. And her assignment is also sort of in itself relational. in the practice because she has a contract of a couple of months, but she is present at the site for 9 months, working there through an atelier and being present, connecting to the place, having her daily life and practice there, and also connecting to the people that are present, other tenants, inhabitants, and also really exploring and investigating how can she, become a part of that? How can the artistic practice be a part of that space? How do you have to negotiate and translate and connect with the other stakeholders who have the power? So, how can she have a place around the table? How she, obviously through that assignment, she has a place around the NEB-Star table. But in order to create something like not necessarily like an artwork, that's not a part of the process, but creating these occasions of interaction and where she can disseminate and sort of find place for herself, and also to make something concrete and tangible in a way. Could be experiential. And that is sort of what she is exploring. And it's useful for us as both the municipality, but also our partners in the project, private developers, to really, through that practice, through that connection, which is a safe and sort of it's a training ground for a training field for getting to know other perspectives and other roles, other stakeholders. Then she is, well, we learn and we perceive, new perspectives. An important foundation for creativity. And you have Helene Eiliott, the architectural company that is a partner of ours. They are already, they're doing the Gaia collaboration with Gaia Architects in Trondheim. They have developed a co-living concept, Vindmøllebakken, and they are exploring very much the immersive experiences of architecture and place. And they have a concrete methodology that is called Walk the Land, which will make the architects getting to know the site more deeply, connecting to the place that they are developing. And really, they've had this method for a long time. But now what they do through NEB-Star is to explore and develop that method, opening that up to other stakeholders, opening it up to passers-by. The pictures here is showing that they drew on the windows of a place, a very vivid street, our test bed, Pedalsgata. So raising the awareness, making people curious. It's a foundation and point of exit for having to be able to disseminate and talk about what they're doing. And also they were collaborating with inhabitants and artists and architects in the municipality, other developers. And from that, the methodology is changing. They are seeing, what is valuable with opening it up, and they're tracking this as we go along. So it's also changing the way they are working, which is also what the municipality needs in general, which I can only speak for on behalf of the municipality. But I think, having the opportunity to see the benefits and the value of co-creation and opening it up and being humble and stepping down and not just containing everything within the ordinary known frame. So they are pushing us. We're also collaborating with the Art Museum in Stavanger. It's a completely different kind of project. We have the Anthony Gormley Broken Column sculpture. They're celebrating 20 years already. And now they speak. It's a completely different kind of dissemination and also connection for the audience having stories told from these men standing around, having views and perspectives and representing places. So that is also interesting for us to see what can these synthetic speaking facilities or tools do for us. Does it sort of give another understanding of a place? What about sort of listening instead of just looking at? It will be interesting to see how we can continue developing this, and also talking about languages, having several languages, and be able also to address languages representing other ages. I mean, there could be so many things, and also we could see how we can have an interaction where you can talk or maybe record and suggest what the sculpture can say. So they're very interesting to see how it connects.
Lena, sorry, 2 minutes?
2 minutes? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be quick. I just want to briefly represent or present the CASE, Contemporary Art Stavanger. We have, through a collaboration with them, done translation of a couple of important and central articles written about the built environments. So this is today's commercial, I'm sorry, but I hope that you will check it out. It's really tapping on motivation for activism, relational and aesthetic responses, talking about cars versus walkability, spontaneous play versus capitalistic purpose, the individual versus the collective. I mean, we use these articles to, I wouldn't say enlighten, but to inspire and make responses and reactions within NEB-Star and also with our partners and colleagues, that if you can sort of have other relevant articles that sort of could kickstart the reflection, we'll have a different kind of conversation and dialogue around aspects that we really need that enable to speed up the changes and the transitions that we need. The third place is also, you know, how creativity is connected to bars and cafes, and the importance of having places that are without hierarchy, without restrictions or barriers. That is where we can have a neutral and conversation and meeting people, which is also making us more including. The Glamour City is also touching upon the same kind of when you are building fences versus having open and inclusive and not exclusive open public spaces. So in the importance of that. And last but not least, also the contract we have with Ida, who is more individual, responding to what we are doing, and also we are opening for this critical thinking and being in dialogue with that in order to improve what we're doing. So and also, again, it's all about, you know, being in connection with other kinds of knowledge and perspectives and what we usually do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helene. That was really, really good, and a plethora of examples of how you are using art and aesthetics in your work. Really inspiring. But let's move on to the next speaker, Amalie de Gudsen from University of Aalborg. You're an associated professor there, University of Aalborg in Copenhagen. That's a bit weird, but that's how it is in Denmark. But you're working in the project Palimpsest, with creative actors to regenerate the lost sustainability wisdom in heritage landscape. And you are going to explain a bit about experimenting and envisioning novel landscape scenarios through co-creation. So please, Amalie, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Aase, for inviting me, and thanks to everyone for joining us, and a very inspiring presentation before me. So I'll try to live up to the other speakers. And I'm talking about Palimpsest, which is a project in which I'm working together to my colleagues, Maria and Nicola from the Service Design Lab. So what it is, the Palimpsest project, as we have said, is part of the NEB initiatives, and Palimpsest stands for Creative Drivers for Sustainable Living Heritage Landscape. Is a big project, many partners, 15 partners, 3 years project. I keep saying it's we just started, but it's almost 1 year that we are working on this project, and we are now entering at the core of it. So it's really interesting also to think about this project in light of what the other speakers talked about and their projects as well. As Service Design Lab, we are working mainly on the experimentation part, so engaging with the 3 pilots of the project, and on the co-design aspect as well. So what it is, Palimpsest is a research project, as we said, and we are exploring the value of creative actions for landscape sustainability transition through these co-creation and co-design experiments we have in the different pilots. The name of the project comes from a Greek word, of course, which is palimpsestos, and it means again scrape, so scrape again, and it's related to a very ancient practice of cleaning the papyrus in order to be able to rewrite on it. So cleaning and remaking, soft enough so to be used again, and so on. And so there is this rewriting perspective that also Madeleine mentioned before, which is related or can be related to the landscapes, right? That are often or can be thought as continuously reshaped through multiple forces that belongs to different, let's say, levels of the landscape. So there are socio-economic dynamics that shapes our landscapes and that are related and nested in both individual and also social behaviors. So we already mentioned also through the other presentation that we are facing several crises related to the environment, the climate as well, and this crisis somehow, of course, influenced the landscape and the different levels of the landscape as well, right? In terms of the production that can happen in those landscape, the deterioration of living heritage, the identity crisis as well, and loss of symbolic and relational values. So what we are trying to do in Palimpsest is to work a little bit more on practices. And again, they have been mentioned also by the previous speakers. So what people do or what people used to do in the landscape and the territories, and how these practices could change in order to move towards a more sustainable and green future, and to have this transition. So we envision these practices as a way to connect the landscape and the territories to specific sustainability challenges that we are working with in the 3 pilots I will talk about in a minute. So the hypothesis we are working with in this project is about the possibility of creative actions as transition drivers, as I said. So can creative actions provide alternative ways?
Sorry, you are muted. We don't hear you.
Sorry, something happened, but please, Amalia, is it possible for you to unmute yourself?
Yeah,
Good.
yes.
You're there.
Okay,
Good.
okay. Yes, no, I was just saying how this creative action can help us in this transition. And I was just mentioning Madeleine again, that also talked about these invisible dimensions that artistic interventions can, make more visible and available to us. So palimpsest try to prove this the validity of this hypothesis, and is looking at creative agents that will work with us in this different experiment. So we try to develop and test operational processes and also methodology that allow architects, designers, and also artists to work together and imagine new practices in the different landscapes. So how this works, as I said, we are working in 3 different pilots, one in Spain, Jerez de la Frontera, one in Łódź, which is Poland, and then in Milan, Italy. They all have different challenges related to pollution in Łódź, related to the river, which is not visible, and it's sort of lost in the imaginary of the city in Milan, with also flooding issues and so on, and the new energy transition for Jerez de la Frontera, with all the implication that has in the landscape. So where are we now today? 1 year in, of course, the first part of the project was more about understanding what were the challenges in the landscape. And we worked as, again, responsible of the co-design and co-creation parts in the pilot's activation. So what are the challenges? Who is involved in the challenges? How different communities, stakeholders are talking about the challenge in the different pilots, and what kind of future they can imagine as well. So then we want to work with artists, right? So we had a call for each pilot, and we started to work into the creative dialogues with a selection of 3 artists per pilot. So many artists applied, 3 of them were selected per pilots. And we had 1 month in which we were, presenting our project to them. They were talking to us about their ideas and sort of suggested each other how to reshape both the intervention and also the way of thinking about the project. And now we have what we call the winner, let's say, for each pilot. And we are starting to work on the residential workshops. We will have the first in Aase in April, actually, then in Łódź in May, and Milan in June. And there is where, again, the co-design and co-creation process will really take place, right? Because we will be all together for 1 week in the different landscape, and this will be happening twice in the next couple of years. Where we will develop together the idea of the artists. We will have the chance to involve the citizens or relevant stakeholders in the area to be in the landscape and start to think about, okay, what could be prototyped that could last in the landscape and that could change, again, practices in the landscape. Then we will work on the prototyping phase and testing as well. And so we will experiment with the prototypes. So we have an initial idea from the artists. We have the framework, let's say, more theoretical from the academic point of view. But it's now when we will start to, engage with communities, collaborate with local actors, and develop the idea, work on the scenario that we envision, and so on. Prototyping will happen next year, sorry. And the idea here is also to see, again, a long-lasting intervention in the landscape, and see if and how technologies could be embedded in this, and who should be involved and so on. And same goes for testing. And here I also have to say that assessing the impact of these interventions is quite interesting and also challenging, and would be nice to discuss with you later on. What does it mean and how can we test this kind of intervention? To conclude, I wanted just to give you an idea of what challenges are we talking about, diving a little bit more deep into one of the pilots we are working with. It's a beautiful place in Andalusia. It's Aase de la Frontera. And here you can see the three different stakeholders that are involved in the project since the beginning. And in particular, for each pilot, we have the local curators, in this case, our wonderful Salas, Fran, and Sergio, that are working more closely with the artists, and that they also have a very good understanding, of course, of the local situation, the different people, and the challenge that is there. So they are helping us in understanding the context, right? Jerez, as I said, is a beautiful city. Here you can see the special soil called albarizas that allows to grow these wonderful vineyards that you can see here. They are producing very good wine, and this is and they have lots of wineries. So this is the tradition, right, of the landscape, and of course it's a tradition that also shaped the city. So there are lots of wineries, and in Hertz we have been there 1 month ago, and we also visited some of them. And it's, of course, wonderful. And there are other traditions, many different, actually, cultural tradition. Flamenco, I guess you all know about it. Very rooted in the tradition, and at the same, very innovative. It's really interesting to see how also that practice and that tradition evolved in the last years, mixing with new musical experiences, engaging with different communities in different places. We heard that there is there are people coming from everywhere in the world coming to experience this flamenco. And there is a new landscape coming up, right? So these new wind farms that are spreading in this territory that has lots of wind, and so lots of energy can be produced, right? So of course there is this challenge in the landscape. So this new landscape with all these wind farms, and then the old tradition, right? And this challenge come also with some contradictions, right? Because what happens is also that given the climate crisis and so on, having vineyards is very expensive and not so rewarding, let's say, economically, right? And so many vineyards need to have wind farms in order to be able to sustain the production of the wine. So there are lots of contradictions there. At the same time, facing some economic challenges also, there is this growing disaffection towards the rural landscape, youngsters, leaving and not engaging with the old tradition that were there. Of course, as I said, the big contradiction, let's say, or crisis there is this, that there are different voices that, of course, look at these wind farms from different perspectives, so against or pro. And while looking at wineries, tourism, and so on, many are against the installation of these wind farms that at the same time, though, they produce energy in a ecological way. Maybe that's also under discussion. And on the other side, again, it's a good economy for the region, right? there is this loss of identity. It was also nice the mention also of the project. Now I don't remember if it was Being of Place, but the one about the bird and missing and losing all the bird life, noises, the sounds from the environment, and that is happening there as well. So in the, as I said, in the what we call the pilot's activation, all the voices that you can see on the right of the slides were collected. So we talked to different stakeholders from the Ecologistas and Action to the more like municipality perspective and so on, to really unfold what it is at stake there and what are the different voices we will work with in the residential workshops.
Amalie, sorry, 2 minutes?
2 minutes, yes. So what we are now starting to work with is what are the practices we could work with, again, in the different pilots. So are there new artistic expressions that could incorporate new actors and controversies, also maybe retaking and considering the history of the place and all the heritage, cultural heritage of the place itself. And we started to collect also together with our curator in Aase, but also in the other pilots, what are the actual practices in the place. And we are started to have this conversation with the different artists. So sort of, explaining what it is, the situation through the practices that are at stake there. And to conclude, I just wanted to give a voice to the artists that will be working within the Palinstas project in the next couple of years. So Estelle Julian, she will be working in Aase with a project called The Songs of Nearby Art, and she will be working, with ceramics and all different practices that are related to viticulture and flamenco as well, with the idea of engaging with the communities, revive all these cultural expressions that are there still, but that are somehow neglected. In which we will be working with Mona Elbatrik, and her project is called The Freedom Flow, Be Like Water, and in which, as I said, we have a big issue of pollution, both the river, but also the air. And so here we will be working, or she is presenting an initial idea for the project about cleaning and filtering water and air through nature-based methods, again engaging with a local ecosystem. And then in Milan, we have Aqualambro, where Gaetan and Miles proposed an impossible idea. So the idea of making the aqua of the river Lambro drinkable again. And again, there is an impossible idea, unfortunately, but again, the core of it would be this ritual in which, again, different communities will be involved in defining also the filters of the machine, probably, and so restoring this different relation, let's say, with the river that also in the Milan area is very often, not visible under the surface. As I said, it's a big consortium. The coordinator of the project is Politecnico di Milano, and I would just like to thank you. I guess I'm over my time. Here is the website if you want to look more about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amalia. I know that you will have a lot of interesting cases to share here. So of course, it's good to listen to you. And now it's time to open the floor for the NEB Saloon. And what we will do is actually to ask Madeleine Kate and Helene and Amalia to simply unmute and then start having a conversation, a dialogue. And we have agreed that I will just ask you, Madeleine Kate, what has sort of made you curious? What are the questions that you come up with now? And then you can start, and please, Helene and Amalie, just join in whenever you feel for it. So please.
Yeah, so just as an overall reflection, I think it's touching and important to meet as practitioners of pioneering approaches, and also to be able to see clearly that we have a time where similar approaches are emerging many places, and the value of us bringing us into a network is really important. There's so many things that arose. I think this whole idea of how we assess the impact, which in a way is of course also an inherited logic of being able to argue through like our intellects that this has an impact. But how do we do that in this kind of work? I think for us, we have, of course, had the possibility through the New European Bauhaus to have a timeline, which is 1 year of inhabitation through the arts. So we had 5 different garden caretakers, and through the whole process, we've been interviewing the people that have been engaging in the interactions with landscapes through the different aesthetic perception workshops. But again, maybe it's not just the inhabitants in the area. How does it have an impact on the multi-species community, on the species that are endangered? Maybe also for our from our perspective, how does it have an impact on developers? You know, so we're doing our best to document this while we're also producing and creating. So I would really love to hear some reflections on tools on this. Yeah.
I'm not representing a developer, but I would say that it's quite interesting to see how sort of these confrontations are, on one hand, and also in the beginning, very uncomfortable. Because it's a completely new and sort of it's untouched terrain, but also since the project and the consortium, after we have 1.5 year in, and we also have 1.5 year left approximately, so it's a longer stretch, and I think it really gives time to do those relational connections and building of trust, and sort of that you can touch and feel a bit before you go into sort of the harsh conversation. But that also really sort of gives me reflections around sort of the more sort of how we do the communication today and how we develop land today. Like Amalie said in Jerez, are you pro or con? And that's sort of having that dichotomy and being like either or is sort of a very unhealthy way to explore. So I think, you know, given time, giving the co-creation of sort of process as a foundation, it is possible to do more of a joint exploration and having a dialogue more. And I think that is sort of where we see the value of artistic research and having the combination of various voices to be heard in this ecosystem of urban development that is very rigid as for now, but that we hopefully can have sort of an open and more explorative process as we go forward.
Yeah. The assessment part, it's quite tricky, I would say, and for us, especially because being in a European project, that's part of it, of course, right? And also, I would say the metrics that we are used to use do not necessarily apply in this kind of context and with this kind of intervention. So in palimpsest, we are working a lot. And again, Madeleine, you were mentioning it, values, right? So what are the values at stake? And what are the values that are shared when we are talking about artistic intervention, landscape, cultural heritage, and so on? And how can we talk about those as I don't want to say KPI because it's an audible term, but nevertheless that we have to use, right, in these kind of projects, but as a way to assess also for ourselves, you know, what it is the impact of what we are doing, right? And I really liked also, again, the material and immaterial qualities that we are somehow eliciting through these interventions, right? And making it more like both of them visible. I think it's one way, and it's very, very important. Yes.
Could I say also, like,
yeah.
having the different stakeholders and also the power keepers, having politicians, the decision makers, having them present and taking part in these sessions, and
Absolutely.
getting to know the soil, getting to know the wind that blows, and the natives, as the Paradise Rangers called the fishermen, and those who picked berries. And, you know, I think it's you have to connect to the place in order to, or you should connect to a place in order to decide over it, right? So I think we are moving or having a very important sort of development there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Also, something that I can see that we use in the project is we need to look at where we are meeting the developers' desires for the project. So one example is that for us, it's crucial that we stimulate a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Like as a large scale mission, I really believe in this. Like this for me is the core issue of the crises. This culture of separation. So how can art stimulate relationships? So this is what I believe in. But then you can say that a payoff of that is that if we manage to do that within a neighborhood, from a developed perspective, you would probably have a group of people that stay in the building. So in this situation, we have a building, a project that we're linked with because we're on the grounds of that project. And that it's a rental, it's a building of rentals. So a developer would be stressing out about the idea that maybe people would come and they would leave and they wouldn't feel a loyalty, they wouldn't be grounded. So I can see that this is where we meet in the way that if we manage to stimulate a sense of belonging, then the people would maybe also be more engaged in the landscape and have a sense of connection, and then stories will be built and then maybe people will stay. So that's an example of how it's a kind of another thing, but just looking into different languages of value.
And that is also about reinterpreting those KPIs that we already have sort of defined already. So it could be valuable for a landowner to have tenants or people taking care of the place. But then today you have a certain understanding of what that means. But then we can challenge that by suggesting another practice and suggesting other ways. But it's obligatory that kind of landowners or that they are present and they join. They need to be sort of connecting to that process. It's so distant if you get it just presented as a slideshow at a meeting. So having these aesthetics and the relational aesthetics as a foundation I think is a super important prerequisite for what we're trying to do. But have you thought about sort of the Nordic dimension in this? I was thinking along, because I mean I used like the Nordic model, the welfare state, the democracy. I mean, I think we have a understanding of us being very much aligned with a certain kind of values that maybe we're not see too much of in urban development today, maybe. But then where do you see art in that? Where do you see the aesthetics and relational aesthetics?
So from my perspective, I would say that actually the immersive performance genre, the pieces the groups that I've been a part of and the work that we've been doing has actually very much been working with shadows and working with aspects of society that we need to deal with, and that we can do in a setting of an embodied art piece. Maybe also, you know, being a part of Danish society, there's so many amazing qualities here, but it's also a very perfect image, you know, like we're the happiest people, the streets are clean, all this, but we also at the same time have a ravaging mental health crisis.
Yeah.
We don't really see it, right? We're walking around in the streets and everyone looks pretty good, right? So from my perspective, I would say that the art genre has actually also grown out of shadow work, of being able to take the uncomfortable conversations within an art piece and embody them. And you can say that, like at the Garden Caretaker, that's many years of practice. And now, of course, with this piece, we have so many things at stake in moving an art space or the stage into a neighborhood, that we need to make it very approachable. And of course, we're risking a lot. Also, the artists are risking a lot because they're moving out of a safer art space, right? And really meeting people. And art as a practice, it also can scare many people. Like when you hear art, maybe it's something fancy, and we need to, again, how do we think about how our language is and how the encounters, what is the ground of where we meet, the language,
It's interesting because this safety dimension, for instance, was very much a discussion also within the palimpsest project, right? When, you know, you have to engage with ideas and projects that might be very radical and also disrupting in a landscape, right? But at the same time, again, it's part of the democratic process, I would say, right? That is, again, I think is one of the identities of the Nordic dimension, participative also as well, right? So yeah, and I would say in the palimpsest project we have pilots coming from more the south of Europe, as you said. Nevertheless, again, we apply this, you know, the participatory design tradition in the way we thought about residential workshop and the way we engage with in the pilots, not only with the artists, but also with other, with the ecosystem there as well. Yeah.
I really, again, sort of speaking from the municipality point of view, I really love the participatory design for both the artworks and the practice, but also how we see now that our planners and architects, they open their eyes to what this can mean. You know, it feels like a very attractive new methodology, or and we are exploring use of tools. You know, how can we sort of, by opening up for a new practice, we also need to develop the tools and for sort of the system for how we can receive these responses and the processes. And that sort of, it's a mutual process, which is it's not sort of a easy walk in the park, but still it's so good to have those colleagues and have, well, NEB-Star as a framework, as a platform, an arena for allowing for these tests and learnings, and also failure, and to, because it requires really to be able to explore and step down from the frightened, safe place, but then entering into a new safe place. It could be like a little playground where you are sort of taken care of as long as you have the trust as a foundation. But it's we also see that sort of doing those translations and inviting to a participatory practice and sort of showing the value of this is really also so aligned with the NEB principles. So it's like somebody thought of this. And also like Latour, I love the mentioning of Latour, and it reminded me of the singing practice. We also have a visual artist called Lina Viste Grønli from Stavanger, and the importance of exploring and really discovering the things that we have around us, or the qualities. And it's the actor network theory is a wonderful aspect to bring in.
Yeah, I just wrote in the chat, if you have any questions, please we can open up the floor to more comments, more questions from the rest of the audience. Otherwise, I will just let the conversation flow. But I see that Andrea Suardi, you have a question or comment, please. Microphone.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I just wrote it in the. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wrote it in the chat, so maybe I would just quickly repeat it. I'm very much aligned with all the topics we presented today, and thanks a lot to share it. And maybe the question goes maybe down this road. So when I worked on this process, and recently we are involved into an urban extension here in Berlin, and we tried to present and push a lot towards kind of like this direction, participatory design, biodiversity, and kind of the resilience of climate in today's matters is very important. So the question is maybe right now we are talking about projects that are very much involved already with the municipalities, and I'm curious to know how that happened. If you can maybe share a bit more the insights and behind the scene, because right now we have been asked to have this they call it reality check. So almost like stripping apart all the kind of the nice biodiversity topic, engagement, and so on. And they want to have a mixed use, amazing new topic, right? And new concept, mixed use urban development, because they need units. So how did you kind of manage to involve actors and stakeholders from the municipality level into make something different for once? And yeah, so that's the question. Thanks.
Maybe I can start I can say from palimpsest how that worked so far. So in palimpsest, since the beginning, we have, as partner, the municipalities or some actors in the municipalities, like in Aese della Frontera, there is this Ajuntamento, I don't remember, but it's one department in the municipality, and that's the same for Milan with the ERSAF and in Łódź, I don't remember exactly the name now, but so they are already in the project. So I would say the strategy there is to engage, to have an ally since the beginning, and someone that knows very well the connection and the situation at that level. So the local and in this case, we are talking about municipal level, but also regional level. And also in Aese, we had, in all the pilots, we have what we call the curators. So in Aese is Nomad Garden, and they are very, very active, again, in the local structure, right? And so, because you cannot enter in a situation, in a context, as the researcher, I come and I look at you, right? So you need to have, people that works with you, that knows what it is at stake, who to involve, and so on. So there was a lot of what we call infrastructuring before the project started, I would say. Yeah. And then let's see how it will go. We don't know.
I would say, Andrea, you're touching on a very central challenge, because for an external trying to find a way in to the municipality, I used to be one of them. It's very difficult, and it's sort of the challenge really is that you have a big structure versus an individual often. But nevertheless, we are people, we are relational, and we communicate through dialogue, and finding, like Amalie said, also to find an ally to sort of approve and advocate for the concept. I mean, you need to find not only towards the municipality, but I think in all occasions, in order, if you want to have, if you want to do something, you need to build the alliance and sort of connect. And connecting through, I mean, that is also basically what we do with NEB-Star, is trying to see how can the municipal plans, the overarching societal and spatial plans, become relevant for individuals like artists, and how can also artists become relevant for the plan. So I think it's a huge task, but it all boils down to connecting to the values and the ambitions. So I would say, if you can relate to working on inclusion and inclusiveness, then that is sort of a point of entry. Can you find those who are working with inclusion to build the relationship and trust so that they can advocate for you? And I mean, that it's not a solution, because it sounds like a very slow process, which it is, but I really hope that we will down the line be able to find a way to work more, and maybe not only having the calls and stuff like that, but also having like collaborations. We need to explore ways to collaborate and use tools and methods to build those relations also with individual stakeholders, because you are not a big company with a lot of marketing agencies, and I know your situation. So it's I'm not sure, Madeleine, if you ever.
Well, from the site we're working with in Herlev, we actually, our way to approach the site was through the private developers. So it wasn't actually a municipality collaboration that was the gateway. But I have an experience from another municipality in Denmark where it was exactly as you say, Helene, relational. So in this sense, it was a municipality that is very engaged in biodiversity within the municipality, and they've been working specifically with a framework called Wild on Purpose. It's Vild med Vilje in Danish. And I just called them because I saw that they were doing great work, and I found the person responsible for this work of the biodiversity gain or reestablishment. And I was so curious, and he really wanted to share. And then I also asked him, did anyone else call you? And I was actually the only one that called them, which was funny. And it started out with us just hanging out, and he took me through the landscapes. And I could see when we were walking through them that they actually really needed artists. As an example, they're doing this thing where they're stabling wood, because then mushrooms grow and then insects live and then the birds can live. But the citizens are taking the wood because it looks random, and they use it for their fireplaces. And so we came up with this idea that what if artists shaped this wood, and maybe there could be an artist that was working with the wood as a sculpture. So this is just very shortly that, again, I kind of like, it went through relationship, it went through embodiment, so moving through landscapes together, seeing what is it that this person cares for, and where do they have some issues where we can actually work aesthetically.
So do you have the conflict where you can, I mean, individuals can negotiate, right? But as an individual negotiating with a structure and a system,
Sorry, we need to close. We need to close in 2 minutes. But Ingrid, you actually had a question in the chat, and I would like to just include that question before we close. I know 1 minute left, but would you be prepared to propose it yourself, or it's relating to Smart City, the Smart Art program?
Sure, Osha. Thank you. Good to see you, and good to see you all. Really beautiful, all these stories. And they're so different, but of course you have this ground. It's really great. And I think that was my question also, because I was really happy to read about that Smart Art program, Helene, you were talking about. And I was wondering whether that maybe makes part of the European Smart Cities network or so that all smart cities might be really also kind of really pushed to really work on this as well in such a way, and that the results can be really well disseminated and shared. So that was one of my questions to you and maybe to others.
Well, thank you, Ingrid. And it's I would say, which is also connected to Andreas' question, I mean, my role was really to negotiate and translate the value of art and artistic practice connected to innovation, connected to the need of knowledge, competence, to be able to change and transform the municipality and sort of the structure, that having artistic research was sort of a key in order to enable that. So and drive that process. So having that said, developing the program was also really just to do the connection between the municipal plans and ambitions, and to see how art can fit in there. But also the need to sort of connect with the artistic community and say that you are relevant for us, and establish that trust is also a big process. But then, you know, having examples, experiences, and building sort of the archive of successes and failures and stories is really also a process where you build the trust and nurturing that kind of practice within the municipality.
And has it been copied? So that's one question. Also, has it been copied? Because I'm thinking about Eindhoven and when I hear what you do. I'm not going to. Eindhoven also works a lot with designers, for instance, but I think it's still super interesting. Your work that you've been doing.
But this is just typical when we sort of need to come to
but
the
we
kiosk.
can take it. We can connect later on, Ingrid.
Yeah, let's do that.
But
let's
absolutely.
have a conversation later. I really loved from all three of you the stories. Really beautiful.
So it's just we have already passed time with 1 minute. I just want to make a small commercial for the next webinar, which will take place on the 18th of March, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, CET time, Central European Time Zone. The title is Partnering Up for Societal Change, and I think the link will be ready very soon for registering for this event. Ingeborg, I see that you are nodding, so that's great. We will share it. We will do a follow-up mail, but also include in that mail some of your comments that are of relevance for all of you, and some links that was put in the comments. And we will, of course, also share the recording of this webinar on the Desire website. So I'm sorry, time is up. So I was very pleased with it was very exciting to listen to the three of you. Thank you so much for spending time on preparing this and taking part in this. And thank you so much for contributing to a very, very good dialogue. And we're looking forward to the next session. And also come to Brussels in the beginning of April. I will be there, and I suppose a lot of you will be there as well, or some of you, and we can meet up there. There will also be a satellite event on the 9th between NEB-Star and Desire with a different theme. We haven't decided that yet, so specifically, but there will be a lot of good chances for further dialogue. Thank you so much, and see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.